Welcome to this week's edition of Black Authors Matter TV, where we interview the latest movers and shakers in the African American literary community. You'll meet some old friends, discover new ones, and stay abreast of the latest book developments around the country and even the world. So sit back and relax for the next 2 hours with Black Authors Matter TV co-hosts Gwen Richardson and Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Black Authors Matter TV. I am Gwen Richardson, your host for tonight, along with my co-host. You need to put your sound on, Rhonda.
Dr. Rhonda Lawson.
Rhonda was gone for a week and she forgot how to do the show.
I know.
But we welcome her back because the show is better. 2 is better than 1, like it says in the Bible. Anyway, we have another awesome show for you this week. And before we bring on our first guest, I have a couple of housekeeping notes. You all really voted in the Black Authors Matter TV Book Awards, not Book Awards, awards. I got so many awards that I get them mixed up. The Black Authors Matter TV Awards, you all really did vote. And so the voting ended at midnight last night. And 2 weeks from tonight, we'll have the award show where we announce the winners in 14 categories. So thank you all for supporting your favorite interviewees. And we had an amazing turnout in terms of ballots. So that's one thing. The other is for those who want to attend the National Black Book Festival in October as participating authors, we're at 75% capacity. So we only have 25% left for space as far as space available. So if you want to register, please don't procrastinate. And for the Black Authors Matter Children's Book Awards, that was the other one. That process is ongoing. It closes June 3rd. So if you want to get your book submitted for that, you got about a month left. So we have some great guests tonight. And our first guest is Brian Copeland. And he's with Black Odyssey Media. And he has a new book out that debuted last Tuesday. So we welcome him to the show as soon as we get him on camera. And hello, Brian, do you have your sound? I don't see a little microphone. So do you have your audio?
He's connecting now.
It's connecting now.
Now he just has to unmute.
There we go.
All right. You all fancy with headphones on and everything to make sure.
As soon, I logged on 15 minutes in advance. And everything's perfect, everything's fine. Then 2 minutes before I'm supposed to come on, the internet cuts out.
Okay. I saw that you logged on early, and then I said, well, he went away. So
yeah. So hopefully it won't happen again. But of course, 2 minutes before, everything's fine, for 15 minutes. So hello, thanks for having me. Thanks for waiting for me.
Thank you for being here. And congratulations on your book release.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
With Black Odyssey and of course, Black Odyssey Media. Aren't you with Black Odyssey Media?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, I'll make sure I get it right. And Therese, she's a great leader in the industry and the space she's in, and she has a really, really good heart as well. And so we really appreciate her and all the work she's doing. And we usually will have the authors with Black Odyssey Media on within a week, sometimes on release day, but within a week or 2 of the release date, we normally will have them on the show so we can give them some early pub, because it's good to have early to go out of the gate with early book sales.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, I was published a week ago today. It's Tuesday.
Yeah, it's always the release day is Tuesday, official release day. It's on Tuesdays. So, and it's also the date of our show. The date our show is on Tuesdays. That wasn't planned, but it really worked out.
Worked out very well. Thanks for having me.
So this is your debut crime novel.
Yes, yes, I've published a book
Outraged.
before. It was a nonfiction book, but this is my first crime novel. Yes,
And it's called
Okay.
Outraged.
it's called Outraged. That's
Ooh,
right.
outraged about.
Well, what the book is about is it takes place in the San Francisco Bay Area. And my protagonist, chief protagonist, is Topher Davis, who is an African American investigative reporter for a TV station in San Francisco, and his sister, Lynn Sloan, who is SFPD homicide. And somebody in the Bay Area is killing police officers and retired police officers who have shot unarmed people of color and not been held accountable for it. And so what they are trying to do is to find out who's behind it, Lynn, so that they can be arrested and justice can be served. And Topher, because his job is about to be cut because of budget cuts, and they're letting him do one more story, so he wants to go out with a big one. So so that's what the plot is, and that's what the outrage is.
Well, that
Okay.
sounds-
Now
that
we
sounds-
hear about this happening in different places in the country. Is San Francisco, does it have challenges in that? Has it had its fair share of challenges with that?
Oh, absolutely. I live in San Leandro, California, which is right next door to Oakland, about 20 miles south of San Francisco. And I wrote this book during the shutdown. That's what I did to keep from pulling my hair out of my head. Was I got up and I wrote this book every day. And while I was writing this book here in San Leandro, an unarmed black man was shot dead in the parking lot of Walmart by police. He was having a mental health crisis, and he was unarmed. And it wasn't one of those situations where you needed law. It wasn't a situation where law enforcement was even necessary. I mean, they should have had some kind of mental health professional or somebody come out to deal with this guy, and instead he ends up getting shot dead. So it happens, everywhere. And of course, I'm next to Oakland, where we had Oscar Grant, and it happens. There's no place in the country that it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
So-
well, especially, cities large and small. You're right
Some
about
of
that.
the instances that, because you said that there was somebody going around killing unarmed black men. So it sounds like there was more than one case. It was almost like a serial murder type thing. Did you?
Well, it's somebody who's killing police who have killed unarmed black men.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
Okay.
it's the
Oh,
police.
okay, so it's
It
like
is
a
the
sub-
police who
okay.
are being murdered. Police and retired police who have done it, who did it over the course of their careers,
Wow. Okay.
who are
Okay.
being murdered, and they're trying to find out who is killing these cops. Are they revenge killings? Who's behind it, and is the motive what the apparent motive appears to be? And that is that, okay, nobody dealt with you, that justice wasn't served in these cases, so I'm going to do it. Or is it something else?
It sounds like
Okay,
a type of story where some readers aren't going to know which way to lean. In one way, they want the perpetrator to be caught, but in another one, they're like, well, these police officers are getting their just due because they killed an unarmed black man. So I feel the emotions kind of tugging either way in this story.
And well, there's a lot that's not what it appears to be on the surface, and that's one of the themes behind what happens with some of these shootings. They're not what they appear to be on the surface. The way that I started this, the angle that I came at this from was, I wanted to explore what happens and what the effect is on the families of those who are shot, as well as the families of those police officers who were the shooters after the media frenzy dies down, after the protests have stopped. Okay, so what happens and what are their lives like? And that's where I came from. That was the jumping off point for how I started to write this novel.
okay. Now you are a playwright as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Does your skills or experience as a playwright, did that come into play in terms of writing the novel? Because
I
this
think
is your
so.
this is your debut novel. Is it your debut novel totally? I know it's not your debut book, but is this your first time writing fiction?
Yeah, it's my first time writing fiction. It's the first fiction novel I ever wrote.
Okay.
First fiction book I ever wrote. And I just tell you about my background. I have been in show business since I was 18 years old. I started out as a stand-up comic here in the Bay Area, and I did stand-up for 20 years. I toured with as opening act for Smokey Robinson and Dionne Warwick and Aretha Franklin and Natalie Cole and Ray Charles. And I played clubs and concerts all across the country, as well as I have a broadcasting career that was going on simultaneously here in the Bay Area, where I hosted the morning show for the Fox affiliate in San Francisco for 5 years. I was on the ABC affiliate in the afternoon, and I had a talk show for 27 years on KGO Radio, which was the ABC affiliate when ABC had radio stations. And then I fell into doing one-man stage plays. I wrote this play about growing up. I told you I live in San Leandro, California. And when my family moved here when I was a kid in the early 70s, it was 99.99% white and us. And so I wrote this book called this play, I should say, called Not a Genuine Black Man. Because of the fact that I had been accused of not really being Black. I got an anonymous letter at the radio station by somebody saying I wasn't a genuine Black man. So I decided I was going to write a story about what it was like to be different. I spent my youth as the only Black face in the room. So I wrote this play. It was a one-man play where I played all the parts. It's funny. It goes from funny to heavy, back and forth. It was supposed to run for 6 weeks. I had comedy bookings at the end of the 6 weeks, and it blew up. And it ended up becoming the longest running one-man play in the history of San Francisco theater. It went off Broadway, went to Los Angeles. Right now, director Rob Reiner, who did such classics as A Few Good Men and When Harry Met Sally, he is developing it right now for television. So I have subsequently done 4 other solo plays that I've written, including my most recent one, which is called Grandma and Me, an ode to single parents. And that won the Broadway World Award for Outstanding Solo Performance for last year. So it's kind of a roundabout way to just give you my background. So everything, all of it really played a role in the writing of this book. I think that writing my solo plays and the stand-up has helped a lot because I am told, and what I was shooting for, of course, is for my dialogue to sound like people talk. And then when you're writing a play, dialogue's got to sound real. It can't sound stilted. And it's the same thing when you're doing stand-up. So that played a real role in it. Topher is a broadcaster, and I was a broadcaster, so I understand how that world works and how the politics of that world works and how what is covered, how it is decided and who makes those decisions, be they right or wrong, all of that stuff. So I was able to pretty much use everything in my bag of tricks, in this story.
Go ahead, Rhonda, because I had the questions first.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, because you haven't asked them that much.
Okay. Well, I was just going to say, as I'm listening to your story, you kind of remind me of the character in American fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Just that whole concept of Blackness and what is Black.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to write stories that happened to be Black, and he had that pressure on writing Black stories. And then he came against Issa Rae's character, who was writing what she felt was Black stories. And I see a little bit of that struggle as I'm listening to your story.
Well, actually, what I wasn't really setting out to with Genuine. I wasn't really setting out to write a Black story. I was just telling. Right. I wanted to tell my story.
Exactly.
The advice I got was to find the piece of ground that I alone stood on and write from there. And that was my piece of ground, being the square peg, being the one who was different. And I liked American fiction. I thought that it was funny, but there were parts of it that really upset me. And a perfect example of it is, just how the main characters' books were in bookstores put in the African American section. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's a book first. Like, for example, Not a Genuine Black Man ended up becoming a book after the play was such a hit that I was asked by a book lit agent to write a book. So I wrote a book, and it sold. It was a bidding war, and it sold in like 3 days to tell that story. And it was a memoir. And instead of when I would walk into the major bookstores, instead of being in the section with the autobiographies and the memoirs, it was in African American studies. So unless you came into the bookstore looking for African American studies, which they always put in the back someplace in the corner, you're not going to see it, as opposed to being, in like the first couple of rows when you walk in the store with all the newest autobiographies and all the newest memoirs and whatnot. And so that bothered me. It was the same. It's the same thing. I'm starting to see. I shouldn't say I'm starting to see. I checked out Amazon, and like Amazon will have the rankings on where a book stands, what number it is in various categories. The first category it has it in is African American mystery thriller, and then it has mystery thriller under that. Well, it is a mystery thriller that happens to deal with some Black themes and has Black characters and was written by an African American, but it's not, necessarily a Black story. I wanted to examine, a social issue that should concern us all.
Mhm. Yeah, this is a decades-old challenge. It hasn't gotten any better. I've been in the industry for going on 30 years in different capacities, as a retailer, as a marketer, as an author. So I hear what you're saying about the categorizations, and if it has Black characters, the industry doesn't see it as universal.
As universal?
Right.
Yeah.
The industry doesn't see it. If it's got, especially the main character, if it has Black main characters, the industry doesn't see it as universal. And I don't know if it ever will, because the gatekeepers keep being the same kind of people.
Mm-hmm.
When the person in the position hires their successor, or whoever they pick as their successor in the positions that make those decisions, they're not us. And so that's how we're viewed in the industry. And we just have to keep trying to reach other audiences on our own, because I don't see, the only time they do, sometimes things will break through on Good Morning America or something like that. They still are characterized as a Black story, but.
Okay, well, here's my question, and I keep meaning to look this up, and I haven't. And in fact, I'll do it as soon as I'm done. As soon as I'm done with you ladies, and that is, I'm curious as to what category they put James Patterson's Alex Cross in. James Patterson is a white novelist. Alex Cross, his lead is an African American lead. Okay, so how do they characterize that book?
Probably really not curious. As a Black story. Probably not. I haven't looked it up lately. But probably not as a Black story, because it's James Patterson. Okay,
so again, you've got Black characters. So what's the difference? Other than the fact that the race of the author, So I mean, I am dealing with issues, and this is a series. This is the first book in a series. The second book. This book, I'm looking at police shootings. I'm done with the second book, and the second book's called Shadows of Justice, and it'll come out next April. And what Shadows of Justice is about is the disparity in media coverage and police attention between the times when a white woman goes missing and when an African American woman goes missing. So I'm looking at that issue and able to look at it from inside the broadcast world, because, as I said, I was in that world for so long. So I mean, I'd like. I'm trying to write stories that deal with issues that are social issues that disproportionately affect people of color. Absolutely. But I'm still writing stories I hope, for everyone, that everyone will enjoy.
Yeah, I
and perhaps think about
that coverage that you mentioned is very real, and not just with white females, but I would say they're at if you did a pyramid or a chart, whatever. If they're missing, it gets the most attention of anybody.
And there's a reason behind that, where you talked about the gatekeepers and what the theory is, and I buy it. Because my years in radio and television, I absolutely buy it. The decisions as to what happens to be covered on in the news are made by the news director. And most news directors are middle-aged white men. So when they see a Gabby Petito go missing, or a Lacey Peterson, or a woman like that, she reminds them of their daughter. They've got a daughter her age. They've got a daughter who looks like her. And so then that's why that gets coverage. That's why they pull out all the stops, because this is my daughter. When it's a Black woman, they don't see it the same way. If it is a Latina woman, they don't see her the same way. She doesn't remind them of their daughter, which is why there needs to be more people in news. There needs to be more diversity in newsrooms across the country. Because again, they're the ones who make the decisions about what's covered.
If you read Tamron Hall's first book, she explored that subject in depth about, the story was about an African-American journalist who was trying to investigate a missing Black girl, but then when there was a missing white girl, she was treated totally differently. So it's a very good story if you haven't had a chance to read it, but she does explore that concept. And you're right. Unfortunately, when there is a white girl missing, America kind of rallies around that girl. We've got to find her. But
or hoses collective breath almost. I mean, you can almost feel it. And the women are at the top, and then after that is white children, and then after that is everybody else. I mean, it's but at the top of the pyramid, if somebody's missing, if it's a white female, it will get wall-to-wall coverage, no matter where they are in the United States. If it's not geographical, it's the fact, it's gender and race specific. And these are just facts,
Yeah, they are. And you have to remember, you said that they rally around, it's like the country rallies around them. Well, why are they rallying around them? Because it's getting tons of media coverage. Because the media is reporting every news cycle, every, bit of minutia that they can find. If they can't find something, then they'll, if there's nothing new or there's no new development, they'll talk to her fifth grade teacher.
They talk to
just
the
something
neighbors
to keep it in the so, but that's why there's a reason that that's why America rallies around.
Yes. And it doesn't help the cause when, and this is just one instance, but when the young Black woman said that she saw a toddler on the freeway, and then people thought she was missing, and that actually got coverage that they were looking for her, and it was a hoax. So it doesn't help matters when
it doesn't.
I don't know what she was thinking or dealing with, but it sounded strange to me when she said a toddler was walking on the freeway, because a toddler doesn't know the concept of traffic, and they would have immediately just run out into traffic. They wouldn't have known to be on the shoulder. A toddler doesn't have those kinds of mental skills yet. At 2 or 3 or 4, that's a toddler. They would not have stayed on the shoulder of the road. It just wouldn't have happened. So that, to me, as soon as I heard that, I said, okay, this doesn't make sense to me. But you try to give people the benefit of the doubt.
You try to, and the other issue with that, and when there are hoaxes, is okay. So this is one woman of color who perpetrated a hoax. Okay, so they will use that as an excuse to dismiss any woman of color who comes forward. Whereas if this was a white woman who had perpetrated a hoax, it's her. It's her as an individual. She did this. She's not representative of everyone who looks like her.
That's true. That's true. And I like the fact that you brought to light that the news directors are middle-aged white men, because people, the people who are making the decisions behind the camera, we think the people in front of the camera are deciding things. They are not. They are reading a teleprompter of words that somebody else wrote for them most of the time.
Well, you write for yourself too. If you're an anchor, you're writing some of your own stories.
You do, but you are also being fed words. That's all I'm saying. You are being fed some of the words, and the people behind the scenes, like the producer, they make the decisions on the guests that come on the show. But you never see those people. You don't see the news director. You don't even know who it is. Now you know, because you're in the industry, and so you've been in the rooms and in the stations. But the public doesn't necessarily even think about that at all.
No,
they just go with whatever they've seen on the news, and that's what they saw on the news.
So again, that's exactly why newsrooms need to be more diverse. You need to have more diversity in newsrooms, and you need to have more diversity of those who are making the decisions of what is covered and what's not. My daughter Carolyn is a journalist, and she works for a wonderful news organization. It's an online news organization called Prism. And it's a nonprofit. Have you heard of Prism? They're
Yeah.
a nonprofit started by the Daily Coast. And now they're on their own. And
Okay.
she just got promoted to managing editor. And what it is that they do is they cover the news from the perspective of underrepresented groups, people of color, LGBTQ community, people who are incarcerated, all the people whose points of view are ignored or dismissed or misrepresented by what the mainstream media believes that people should know or want to know. And that's what it is they cover. And it can be the same issue that you just saw on ABC News, but it takes on a whole different meaning when you're looking at it through the eyes of someone who is not particularly a white male, which is who it is that they're aiming for, that they're trying to make it palatable for.
Well, we have a couple of minutes left in the interview. So do you have a copy of your book with you?
Matter of fact, I do.
Wonderful. Let's see it.
Here it is.
Oh, okay. Looks
Sorry about the
great.
glare.
No, it looks perfect. Looks great. And is your second book with Black Odyssey as well?
It sure is. It's called Shadows of Justice, and again, it'll come out next year. And I'm working on a third Topher book. Actually, I'm in the researching stage of a third Topher book right now.
Wow.
Okay, and we can talk a little bit more around it. So just
okay, I'm saying no grass growing under your feet. You're already ready.
Yeah. Now, one of our viewers, Curtis Stevenson, he watches the show every week, and he said he will definitely be getting this book. I like what social topics it is dealing with. So, and I also
Thank you.
I like what you said about your book, and I'll be ordering my copy as well. When I write fiction, I write mysteries. So, and my two books that I have, they're a series, book 1 and 2, but my main character is a journalist. So, a journalist is a good character to bring current events to light, because that's what journalists do, is they cover current events. And so, and I don't have a journalism background, although I've been a writer for many years, but I like, I watch a lot of shows that have journalism at the base of them. There used to be more on TV. I can't even remember the names of some of them now, but there used to be more series on TV that were news-based. Now it's more police or fire or medical.
Well, there was a great one that ABC had that they just canceled that was called Alaska Daily.
Yes.
With Hillary Swank, and what that dealt with was the murders of indigenous women in Alaska, and and that was the whole season. It was great, and they made it through the season, but then they canceled it. And they gave it a second.
I watched it on Hulu or one of the.
That's what I saw was Hulu.
Okay, and it was funny because when I watched it, I was finishing up my novel, the sequel, and the thing where they had the tote board where they ranked the different stories and how many clicks each one got, I ended up using that in my book because I saw it on Alaska Deal. I said this would be great. So there's nothing new under the sun, but I don't even know. I know that happens on websites. When you go like to a news website, they'll have the shows ranked. I mean, the stories ranked by what's, based on clicks, because now that's what it's about, because that's where the ad dollars come from.
Right.
Well, a lot now. Well, we are at the end of our time, but Brian, thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV. Congratulations again on your book. And I do
Thank you.
plan to get a copy. It sounds exactly like the kind of reading I enjoy. So,
Oh, well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me. I've enjoyed this very much, and I hope you like the book.
okay.
Maybe I'll see you next year when the new one comes out.
Yeah,
There you-
we'll talk to entice, she works it out. So we'll find out when the release dates are, and then we'll work that out so we can
All
get
right.
you back on.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a
Yes.
great evening.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, for those who are just tuned in or tuned in right after the top of the hour, I do want to let people know that we did end the voting for the Black Authors Matter TV Awards. It ended at midnight last night, and so the votes are being tallied to find out who the winners are in those categories. And the people who were finalists, you will get an email with directions on how to participate in the award show, which will be 2 weeks from tonight. And it's a fabulous, amazing night. This will be our 4th award show, Rhonda, which is so it's exciting.
Time
It
really
does
flies.
time fly. So we're excited about having another one. It's really, really going to be great once again. So we are bringing on our second guest for tonight. His name is Greg Stallworth, and he has a book about a whistleblower. I thought at first it was nonfiction, like based on true events, but then I was reading, and it sounds like it might be a novel more so than a nonfiction book. But Greg will tell us when he comes on screen, and he has been following the show and the book festival for some years now. So we're glad to be able to have him on the show. I think he was supposed to come to the festival one year before COVID, I think, and it didn't work out or something, but maybe he'll be able to come in the future. So we see a camera, there we go. And all we need now is sound. Need to be connecting my audio. I don't see the little microphone on there. And I'm not exactly sure how to advise you about the audio because
He's connecting.
okay, on my end it doesn't. Oh, there it is. Okay, now it says it's connected. Okay, because at first it wasn't saying that. So okay, now we need you to unmute so we can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Yay. Okay, okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is your book, and it's about a whistleblower. And if you heard me as I was bringing you on, I wasn't sure if this is a book of nonfiction based on true events, or if it's a novel, like fiction. So, can you clarify that?
It's a fiction, Gwen. It's a very relevant fiction because I speak about the life of a whistleblower, and especially a Black corporate executive who took his corporation he worked for to Fortune 500 status, only to receive several voice messages on his phone about illegal corruption going on in the corporation. So when you get that information, you're kind of put in a vice between either staying silent and protecting your job and your very lucrative salary, or you let the authorities know what's going on, which makes you a corporate whistleblower. And you put yourself at the risk of many things by going public.
So so whose point of view is the book? Is it the point of view of the executive or the whistleblower?
It's a point of view of the executive who ended up being the whistleblower. And the reason why I wrote, go ahead.
No, okay. No, I said, okay. So,
And the reason why I wrote this, Gwen, and is that it's so relevant in our times now about the pearls of or the life of a whistleblower. And you probably know as well as others that over the years, whistleblowers up until 1989 was not protected for their employment, and the risk of their life was in jeopardy. So I wrote this to really give a little more deeper information about what happens when a person goes through the fact that they are a whistleblower in America.
That's absolutely true. Even if their lives weren't threatened, there was so much recourse that they had to go through. People harassing them, threatening their jobs, making conditions deplorable to make you want to quit. Anything that they could do to get back at you. So you're right in that whistleblower protection is actually still relatively new.
And what was so good about it, Barack Obama reenacted the law when he was president. And one of the things that the reason why you look at my title saying guilty is not enough, as we know, in the court of law, the finding of guilty is the highest level of sentencing you can get. But when I say guilty is not enough, what I mean is that even when the person is found guilty, the victim of whatever it is, their pain, their agony, their emotional distraught, a lot of times go on beyond that person's sentence. Right. So when I said guilty is not enough, a lot of individuals die going through the pain. And the prime example was Watergate. And, it's just so good to be able to tell this story because of its relevancy, because not only do we have corporate corruption, you see what we're dealing in the political arena.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So a lot of times whistleblowers end up having to sign a non-disclosure. I guess if they blow the whistle, then they're violating the non-disclosure. That's what it is. And so, but sometimes there's and then these days there really needs to be a payday because now people with social media, people can harass you.
Yes.
Around the world. I mean, you can get worldwide harassment, whereas in the past, before social media, it was basically just in your community or maybe even in your industry or whatever. But now people can harass you. And people, I guess they don't have anything better to do, or they feel more empowered to bully people when it's at a distance. Well,
thank goodness the Whistleblower Protection Act protects their employment. Also, they could sue. The person who is the whistleblower can go do litigation regarding it too. So prior to the Whistleblowers Act, so many things in the pain and the agony. And in my story, it talks about a successful Black corporate executive and his wife and the pain they went through, the threats, and many other things that they incurred. And when me and my co-author, Tracy Black, wrote this story, we had to think about that. It was very emotional to write this story too. So to be able to write it and share it and receive a lot of response from it, it's been really interesting.
Okay, wow. So when did the book come out?
The book came out late 2023. And what happened is, Gwen, I tell you, I wanted to get on your show earlier. It's just so, it's so interesting that I took the book and I decided, you know what, I'm going to write a feature film script regarding it. So I submitted it to the 2024 Chicago Scripts Award, and first time I ever wrote a film script, first time ever. And it received an official selection with the Chicago Scripts Award. And I was real pleased with it. And the fact that I'd never done it before. A lot of my friends, because I was a playwright before I became an author. So I just came to the point, let me try this. And I get encouraged by going to your website because I see others achieving. And I say, oh, let me give it a try. So I want to thank both of you for allowing me to be on here and you guys hosting my interview.
Well, congratulations on trying something new. And you must have moved in excellence with it. You must have done some research on how to properly do it because you received accolades for it. So my question is, what did you see was the big difference between writing a theater script versus writing a movie script?
Woo, detail.
Yes.
Detail. I think both you ladies can relate to that. A lot of detail, a lot of information. You can't have your readers hanging, in terms and making sure that your conclusion is thorough. I tell you, that was the toughest part, down to the conclusion, making sure that at the end of the reading that readers understood what you were writing and where you were going. And the good thing about it, that I think I set myself up for developing a sequel to it, because it really talks about the pain and the agony of a whistleblower, but also his wife, and what they endured even away from the corporation, especially when the person that was involved found out that he was the one that went to the authorities with information.
So how was it writing, working with?
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, and often the family is in danger. It's not just a singular decision when you make the decision to be a whistleblower.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's similar when you make it other decisions, like to stand up for a particular issue, or when you feel like something is important for you to take a public stance. And sometimes, you have to consider, like I said, now with social media, your family and people look up everything about you. Once you
Oh, yes.
go out there and say something, then they start combing through everything you ever did or said, or where you lived, or who's connected with you. It's a lot. So this is a good subject to do. Now, how was it co-authoring? How was it writing with another author? Writing a novel with someone else?
Very easy. When you got a co-author that's in the same field and has a open relationship, and I think that's very critical. When you make decisions, you need to make sure your cooperation was great. And Tracy Black was very, very, I couldn't have found a better co-author in terms of consulting with me and making sure that the final product was something that we totally agreed on. In fact, it was, the transition was very successful. And a lot of it, Gwen, has to do with, we look at some of the work on a National Black Book Festival and what you guys are doing. So there's reference points within your organization, and that helped us a lot.
Well, that's good to know. You never know. You never know who's looking at your stuff.
You never know who's being inspired, and that's an awesome thing.
It's true. It's true. I wonder if when you decided to do this book, did you decide at the beginning that you were going to have a co-author? Did you start writing and then you said, well, let me see if I can bring somebody else in? How did that transpire?
Well, hey, that's a good point. What I did, Gwen, is that I decided that from the beginning, I want to bring a young lady in who has knowledge. You hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to bring a young lady in, African American female, in who can walk this walk with me, this literary walk. And oh my goodness, it's so good to have an individual that come on board with you and walk this walk. We went through the pain and the agonies. We went through a lot of discussions, but the final product was so great that we say, you know what? We gonna celebrate us. And if being a experienced male writer, she was able to help me along, and she said the biggest words that she could have said was "thank you."
Beautiful. Now, how did you decide that Tracy was going to be the person that you would work with?
Well, Tracy has done some writing, so experience was key. The other thing is that she had goals. And when you're writing with someone that has goals like you, it makes the merger real easy. And it's times where we go to, I've mentioned National Black Book Festival, and I told her we need to go to Houston, Texas, to the big event. So that's our plans, and we're looking forward to it. And it's no better feeling to bring your work home. I call it bringing it home. So it's been a total blessing. And I want to end here by saying, when I mentioned about the whistleblower and his wife, I wanted to show two individuals in unison. Even during the struggle, she helped him when he was going through his depression and fears. And it's nothing like to have your better half say, "Look, baby, we're going to get through it." So that is brought up in the storyline too.
Well, that's a good thing, because sometimes when in stories we seem to focus on the destruction of the relationship, how something is tearing the couple apart, and it seems like going through this whistleblower process actually brought them closer together.
Yes, it did. And one of the things she recommended to him, let's call Pastor. He was just in panic state, and he went home early saying, "What are we going to do?" And when she said, "Let's call Pastor," and they met with him, it just seemed like that opened up the gates to allow healing to start. And it's been great. And I tell you, it's just a total blessing to be able to write this book, but also present it on this program has been something of a blessing too.
Oh, now, do you have a copy of the book? Did I miss the copy?
Oh yeah, let me show you the book if you can see it. I don't know if you can see it. It's
okay.
It says,
so that's a jury.
Yes, a jury there.
Okay.
And the jury is there getting ready to give their verdict, and it says, "Guilty is not enough. Life of a whistleblower." And I must tell you, ladies, it was there were times in the story at my age, even at my age, it was very emotional. I had to stop and pray and cry, because I brought it so much to a realism that it was very tough for me at different points, especially when he was asked to testify in court about what he was experiencing. and the emotional baggage by when it was found out that he was a corporate whistleblower. So, you know, it was very emotional, but I tell you, it was no better feeling to see your finished product come to you with your name on it, and the fact that I couldn't wait to get on Black Authors Matter TV.
Well,
You are a charmer.
yeah,
and that's serious. Hey,
Rhonda
that
speaks
is
for both of us.
yeah, well.
I wanted to ask you about your photo that's on your book cover. Is it a stock photo?
Huh?
The photo that's on your book cover, is it a stock photo?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And
So
you
what
know,
did you look for? Did you put in like black jewelry?
yeah, I put in I just put in jury, and I
Okay.
wanted to make sure that the members, it showed a balance of Black jurors in it. That was
Okay.
real critical to me.
Okay.
To show that, because a lot of times in juries you'll see very limited Black jurors in the composed of the 12.
Yeah.
And on the back of the book, I don't know if you can see it, there's
Okay.
I want to show that at the end.
The gown.
And I did a nice epilogue, just to kind of sum it up, and with hopes that I can inspire young people to pursue the arts and encourage them to see me in Houston.
Okay.
And them are my real future goals.
Okay. Well, you still have time if you want to come this year.
Oh, I will. I'll be getting in touch with you.
Yeah, we're at 75% capacity.
Wow.
I tell people. So
Okay.
we expect to sell out by the end of June, just based on the pacing, the rate of registrations.
Well, I won't wait that. Hey, Gwen, I won't wait that long.
Okay, I let people know, because if sometimes people say, well, because most events don't sell out that far in advance,
Right.
So and last year I think we sold out by the middle of July. We were sold out, and I had at least 100 people trying to register after that, and we couldn't take them.
Right.
And then what they did was they registered like immediately. As soon as we opened it for this year, they registered like immediately. So they wouldn't. But it's going to be exciting. We're looking forward to it. And we just recently, for the audience, we recently closed out our featured author lineup for this year. And we have Dr. Ian Smith, who's like a TV personality. He also is a doctor. He does like the weight stuff, how to lose weight, but he also does mystery books. He has a whole series of mysteries. And so he has one being released in the fall, which was great timing. And then we have April Ryan, who's the White House correspondent for the Griot and some other publications.
Okay.
And she's going to be there. And then we have Rashonda Tate and Quan and Vanessa Miller. So we're excited about our lineup this year. And we were able to get everybody confirmed a lot earlier than we normally. Normally, we don't get everybody confirmed in our featured author roster until like it might be the end of July before we confirm everybody. But this year, because we confirmed everybody so early, it allows us to start promoting the lineup in the event a lot earlier. So you'll start seeing ads and video for the event soon.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so
I didn't want to say soon just yet.
How is your the response to your book been?
Oh, it's been good response, ladies. I tell you, I did a piece on black press release.
Dante
And
Lee's.
yes.
Oh,
And I tell you, within 48 hours, I got several responses because they put it like on Black Media and everything.
okay.
And in fact, I got a YouTube interview tomorrow at 5 o'clock from Dante, and I'm looking forward to it. But getting back to your question, the response has been great. I think because of the relevancy of the subject matter, for one. I must say that it didn't hurt. It don't hurt that this political ramification that we are going through with related to corruption brings attention to the word corruption, even though I'm talking about corporate corruption. And I wanted to show a Black family working through. I didn't want to show a negative. I wanted to show where they were able to work together in crisis, during a crisis, and it made them stronger. A lot of times you see stories when that, they end up in a negative, but I wanted to show where she, the wife, this Black woman that told him, look, baby, we're going to get through this.
Absolutely.
Through it all. So I think for me, because I'm a domestic violence advocate, I really made sure that was the centerpiece of the story.
Okay.
That's great. Like I said, I love the fact that you wrote the story that way, because it shows that Black families do know how to stick together during.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I do the same in my novels. I tell people my novels are not about conflict between the couple. It's about the couple working together to be in solidarity against whatever they're dealing with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, well, Greg, thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV. Show your book cover one more time so people can.
Okay, I'll show it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's Guilty, It's Not Enough, Life of a Whistleblower. It's written by myself and Tracy Black. And it's a good read. It's a read through, and we're talking about, just sharing this, we're talking about doing a sequel to this book, but we need to have further discussions.
Okay. Well, and it's available wherever books are sold, I'm assuming, normal.
It's our book is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And the beautiful thing, what I share, I don't try to overcharge on books. We kept it under $10. And again, we just enjoy writing. But one of the things that I want to encourage future writers is don't miss the opportunity to be on programs like Black Authors Matter TV. I'm saying it's critical that we support each other, and I look forward to seeing you in Houston, Texas.
Well, we look forward to seeing you as well. Thank you.
Take care. Have a great evening and congratulations.
And thank you. And you take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so everybody, that was Greg Stallworth, and he was talking about his book, Guilty Is Not Enough. And so we are moving right along, and we have our third guest on for tonight, and we had three males. We normally don't have three males on the show. It just happened to be that way this time. So at any rate, we have our next guest, Vinson Cunningham, and he is a journalist himself, and he wrote a book, his new novel. I believe it's his first novel, if I'm not mistaken. But he's shaking his head. Okay, so, and his novel, I happen to have a copy, and I read the book, so I have questions. So
beautiful.
It's called Great Expectations, and welcome to Black Authors Matter TV.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you
Now,
for
I'm wondering, did you title it Great Expectations? Was that your idea?
You know, it was. I went through a bunch of different titles, some of which were better than others, but none was like totally satisfying me. So a friend and I at a party, kind of almost in a joking way, said, "Wouldn't it be great if you could call this book?" I had written the book way before I came up with this title. If you could call it that, and then it just grew from a kind of a joke in my mind to something that I thought would be kind of ironic, sort of funny, and also um, bring forward some of the things that the character in the book really cares about.
Okay, well, for those of you who are out there in Black Authors Matter TV land, um, if you watch the show, we discussed it that titles can't be copyrighted. If people are wondering about that, a book title can't be copyrighted. So, Great Expectations was a book, a classic. I think it was by Charles Dickens, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. And it's like 100 years old or something like that. It's, so, but I like the cover. Now he's out to sea, like the person on the book cover is
Sure.
like adrift, like he's adrift. I
Yeah.
guess that's like a metaphor for what?
Well, there's a lot of first of all, I should say the painting is one of my favorites. It's by Winslow Homer.
Okay.
Also old, you know, this is mid to late 19th century is Homer. And that's a painting called The Gulf Stream. And many of my favorite writers have written about this painting. Derek Walcott, the poet, wrote a beautiful, one of my favorite poems about this poem. And it's just a view of this sort of, on one level, kind of peaceful background, and on the other level, this like interesting figure, right? There's this black guy who like almost looks like he's at rest, but he's also kind of looks like he's stranded. It's kind of ambiguous as to what's going on with this guy. Um, and that's a little bit like the narrator of my book. His name is David Hammond, and he's a young guy who has sort of been swept onto the campaign of this senator who goes unnamed in the book, but has many resemblances, of course, to Barack Obama. And one of the things that David thinks about a lot is water. He, like I, was sort of taught to think about water in many ways, whether it's, Christ walking on the water, or how water shows up in certain books about the Middle Passage. He's always thinking about and thinking in water nautical metaphor. So I thought it was appropriate for the content of the book, this painting.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'm liking what you're saying about how the picture, the painting kind of symbolizes a lot that goes through the book. What do you think came first for you? Was it the painting inspiring the story, or was it the story that or you had written a story and then the painting came later?
I wrote the book first, and once you've kind of given your draft to the editors and you're on your way toward the finalized text, is when they start to talk to you about all these other things, the jacket and all these things. So I love visual art. It's like one of my one of the things that nourishes me, I guess. So I was way too like eager about this task. I had this meeting about the cover, and I made a whole PowerPoint presentation of like different paintings that I like, that I'm interested in. This would be cool, that would be cool. And based on that, we started a process of going back and forth. What about this? What about that? They would come and make a mock-up. And then at one point I sent them this painting and saying, this is one of my favorites. What if we could do something with this? So it was this really wonderful collaborative process, but it all came after, just like the title. So for me, at least, some people, the title that they first come up with is the title, but I'm not the best titler, so both title and jacket were ways of me finding just some final touches to make things kind of come together even better.
Okay. So is this an autobiography labeled as a novel, more or less?
Well, it's interesting. The simple answer is no, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in here that did not happen to me.
Okay.
you know, a lot of the plot points that happened certainly later in the novel didn't happen to me. And if it was a book that was just about what happened to me when I worked on the first Obama campaign, as I did, it would be boring, and that it would not be something. It would not be a project I'd be excited to write. But you know, and this is something that is like true for me across lots of my favorite novelists. You know, like James Baldwin's first novel, Go Tell It on the Mountain, was about, you know, a kid in a church, very much like the church that Baldwin grew up in. The early college scenes of Invisible Man, like Ralph Ellison, that's a lot of the world he came from. So a lot of my favorite books have some relationship to reality, even though it's not totally fixed in the fiction. So um, David Hammond, the protagonist, his life before this campaign is a lot like mine. You know, both of us grew up in New York, or born in New York, had um, Bible study teacher mothers and church choir directing fathers, lived in Chicago for a time, came back and lived in New York, and joined this really like world historical campaign almost by accident. Those are things that happened to me as they did to him. But things start to diverge once the story gets going. But I did think a lot about, you know, what from my life I would like to use and what not to, and what to make up and what to use. It was a constant thought that I had.
Okay.
So, you are a journalist.
Yeah.
So, do you feel that, I mean, and journalistic writing, I'm a former military journalist, and I
Oh,
work
wow.
in public affairs now, and I'm also a fiction writer. And one of my biggest struggles was journalistic writing and transitioning that to fiction writing.
Yeah.
Um, you have to write shorter, and you know, brevity is key when you're writing
Yeah.
journalistic. Was this something that you kind of had to overcome when you started writing?
You know, I was lucky in this way because the journalistic work I do is almost all in the New Yorker magazine, where I'm a staff writer there. So the work that I do, whether it's I'm one of our two theater critics, but then I sometimes do long reported pieces about people. So I did, you know, in 2016, I hung out with Kirk Franklin for a bunch of months and did a long article about him. I did a long profile of the comedian Tracy Morgan, um, people like that. So luckily, the magazine work that I've done has given me some space, some room to run, and space to be creative. Um, I um, I started writing this novel not long before I started working at the New Yorker. So on some level, like those two parts of my life, those two parts of my brain were happening all at the same time. So sometimes I would like learn how to do something through my journalism that I then wanted to see if I could make work in this novel, or vice versa. While I'm working on this very private project, I would say, let me practice that technique over here in this space they give me in this magazine. So for me, those are like sort of parts of a whole that kind of help each other out.
I will say that you were fortunate in that. In my case, I was fortunate because when I first joined the Army and I was writing for the base newspapers, I would got a lot of freedom to write more futuristic feature type stories. So
Yeah, yeah,
I write longer stories, but it was so totally different when I started writing books.
yeah, yeah,
I had to remember, okay, I have to be a little bit more descriptive now. I can't
yeah.
just I can't just tell you the sky is blue and then keep moving.
Yeah, yeah. It is a different kind of even though I get to write longer pieces, I still do have a sense of like, okay, what's the word count? What's going on? You know, whereas this, it's all everything is your choice, you know. One thing that's amazing to me about journalism that I really love is, and what's it helps me get my work done. I can be very slow as a writer. Like I'm not gonna lie to you about my process or anything, but um, it is very comforting to know like there's a page somewhere with your name on it, and somebody is doing an illustration or they've made a photograph or this or that. Like you better fill that page up. That's your business now. Like you don't
Yeah.
want, you know. And that has always helped me get my work done. So to this is much more internally motivated, right? Like nobody is hectoring you like, hey, we need to print this book tomorrow. Like if you don't do it, then it just won't get done. So it's a different it's a just whole different way of thinking for me. And so it was hard to like, okay, yeah, how do I expand? How do I slow down time in this motion, speed it up in this it's lots of different freedoms that you don't often get.
When did you start writing the book and when did you finish? Like
Yeah.
what years?
Sure, yeah. I started writing a version of this book when I wasn't totally sure what I wanted to be in 2013. And I worked on that for a little bit. And then in 2016, I threw it all away except for one page.
Mm.
And that's because it was like 100 pages or something. And I was like, this is not what I want it to be, except for this one page, which was a scene where a character is sitting in the middle of a party and he's looking at a painting on a wall and is thinking about his, it's reminding him of certain things in his childhood and his upbringing, what has brought him to that place. And I realized that was what I wanted this book to be, someone experiencing something in the present tense, but always letting it, making those things, making his mind move around, or making him go back into memory or thought or even worship in places, whatever. So I started with that in 2016, and then you will recognize this. The day that I finished it, the day that I finished it such that I was ready to send it out to editors, um, I clicked, send to my agent to send the thing. I came out into the living room that I'm sitting in. I turned on the television, and on CNN, instead of the election certification that I was hoping to see, it was a bunch of white guys in army clothes trying to get into the U.S. Capitol. It was January 6th, 2021 was the day I finished this book. Or finished the first draft of this book. So it was weird, from 2016 to 2021, really, I wrote this book about the Obama beginning over the course of Trump's presidency, which was just weird just to be thinking about this time and experiencing this one.
Well, I asked because, I wanted to know if you kept a journal or a diary. That was when I was thinking this was an autobiography, more or less, labeled a novel. But you did start it not that long after the 2008 election. 2013 is 5 years as opposed to, 10 years or, some things, some details would still be fresh. The ones that you kind of put your personal experience as a fictional scene.
Yeah. It was interesting. So after I worked on the first campaign, I then moved to DC. And first I worked for the Democratic Party, the Democratic National Committee, where I worked as a fundraiser, just like I did on the campaign. And then after that, I worked in the White House for almost 2 years. And then I left DC, came back to New York, with the intention of kind of trying to make my way and eventually become a writer. So it was a whole experience, not just the 18 months that are characterized in this book, which are just, 07 and 08, this time of the campaign. But the years after, even this time in my life when I was trying to, I don't know, I guess, understand this country better as a result of being this close to power in this really strange way. So it was on some level, even though I didn't know that this is what I was doing, I just wanted to write a book that had a lot of parties in it.
That was true in here. It was interesting though.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
So how much of that one page that you salvaged from that first draft, how much of that is in the current book?
That page survives almost totally. For a while, it was when I first cut it out, I just said, okay, this is now the first page of the book, and so I wrote for a while with that as the first page of the book. After I kept revising the book, and I can be a bit of a perfectionist. It ended up being it's in the second or third chapter, this one page, but so yeah, that page is there. It's just a couple of paragraphs, so you would kind of zoom past it, but for me it's like a sort of really important moment that kind of shows the reader what kind of book this wants to be.
Now your writing style is different from what I generally read, in that it's almost like a long magazine article.
He's a magazine writer.
I know, that's why I know it's true. It's it was very creative the way you told the story.
Thank you. Yeah. I've always been a reader, and I've always loved novels that, I don't know, give you the news from a new point of view almost, that,
Hmm.
um, you know, I could think of so many books that happen in a certain year and they dramatize a historical event. And for whatever reason, I've always learned better from fiction than I can from, I did from history classes or whatever. So, um,
Sure.
so much of American history has come to me through fiction. So that's one of the things I think about a lot. Like how can a work of fiction also contain something about like history and how we experience it together?
Are you still in the DC area?
No, I live in New York. I'm in Brooklyn right now, and my mom still lives in the apartment that we moved into when I was 13 years old. I'm a New York guy. When I was a child, I lived in Chicago for 6 years, and then we moved back to New York.
Well, I see you've lived in some places that inspire a lot of writing: DC, Chicago, New York.
Yeah, I'm a city guy. I just got back. I was doing something at the Los Angeles Times book festival last week. And just thinking about how much of I'm driving through. LA is a weird city to me because you have to be in a car so much. But just thinking about as I passed all the people and looking at the downtown skyline up ahead, just how much cities have I don't know, nourished my life as a writer, just because there's always something new, there's always something to observe. um I don't know, like walking through a city feels like being the narrator of a novel to me. Do you know what I mean? Like just because of all the different descriptions you have to do along the way. So yeah. And yeah, I've always loved Chicago as a fiction city too. I love Saul Bellow. I love so many books that kind of either happen in Chicago or pass through it. So yeah.
Yeah, Chicago is a scene in a lot of novels. Of course, New York too.
Yeah.
But that's true of television as well.
Right.
There's
That's right.
more in Chicago than there used to be because everything kind of used to be both of the coasts. But now Chicago is making this mark with
Yeah.
the Chicago Med, the Chicago Fire, and the Chicago PD.
Oh
I
yeah.
watched two of them.
I haven't watched any of them yet, any of the Chicago's, but I did always wonder why, like, okay, they got the Chicago PD. I'm just waiting for like, Chicago ACS. Like what's next? What public service are they gonna do next? But I I do love Chicago and I love to see it. Yeah. I remember when what was that? Family Matters, when they would
Mhm.
come in on the skyline. Dun, 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 dun. I love to see it.
Yeah, now for me, the book really highlighted the central focus of young people in
Hmm.
the even though Obama's name is never mentioned in the book, but the reader knows that's who it is
Yeah.
because everything else says Obama. It's just his name is not it.
Yeah.
But it really does give you the sense that young people were running things and they really didn't know what they were doing, but they had a lot of passion and commitment and they had a lot of belief in what was the candidate
Yeah.
and the historic nature of what they were doing.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Um, I have a daughter who's 18 years old now, so I think about this all the time, just like what it is to be, young apart from your parents, but noticing things about the world that you live in for the first time, and first those first moments of feeling like, okay, somebody older than me has given me a raw deal, and it's up to me and people like me to make a better world if we want to make it one. And there's a lot of comedy, of course. You get older and you see some things, and there's some comedy in how much they don't know and think they know, and that's always a theme. You look at the young and you say, if only you knew. But at the same time, they sort of point the way from us. Like right now, half a mile north of, I just told you where my mother lives, at Columbia University. The students there just occupied a building and they've had this encampment there because they just don't like seeing images of children being murdered on TV all the time. You know, that they have seen these images that come out of Palestine, and they say, we don't like that, and we don't like that our school helps to fund these atrocities, right? Right now, the police have just before this, I was listening to their student radio. I'm speaking of like young journalists. They're like amazing. They sound like I don't know. They sound like Channel 7 radio, but just thinking about how sometimes it takes that youthful ignorance, that youthful
naivety,
and
idealism.
it takes a lot of that just to believe
It
that you
does.
could, I don't know.
It does.
It takes a lot, and this world saps you of that. Yeah.
But that's what happened with the civil rights movement.
That's what I was
it
going to
was
say. If we look
done by young people.
If we look at history, it's often our young people who have led a lot of these movements. In the 60s and the 70s and so forth. It's often the young people who lead these movements. And so I think in some ways it could be naivety, but the other part is just being bold enough to say, I don't agree with this and this is wrong. So,
that's right.
I mean, this is just history continuing to repeat itself.
It's so true, and you're right. We shouldn't say it's naivete, but I don't know. For me, 9/11 happened when I was a senior in high school, and then not long before my daughter was born, there was Katrina, and then there was right after the Obama campaign, the financial crisis, and then Trayvon Martin, and then the election of Trump, COVID, on and on. People my age, and I'm not, I'm just a guy, I guess, in terms of my age, but it's like have already kind of learned this like helplessness. Like life tries to teach you that nothing can be done, that it's too late. We're already on the slide down, and people who haven't been taught that false lesson, often make the rest of us kind of remember what it was like to believe in that way. So I totally agree. It's not just naivete.
No, it is idealism.
Of course.
Yeah. Idealism is a better word for it.
That's right.
But youthful idealism, normally you don't have that as you get older. Then you become cynical, and it's just the stages of life that people go through. Now I have a couple more questions because I have my I don't know if you can see my I have some sticky notes.
I love it. That's the best thing. It's the most satisfying thing to see somebody paid that much attention to what you made. I appreciate that.
On page 149.
Okay, let me get mine as well.
Okay. All right. And somebody else may have already asked you this.
Sure.
You refer to Reverend Wright, but in the book it's Reverend Reynolds. Now, what I wonder is, did you intentionally change the name, or did that not get picked up in the edit?
No, all through the book, there are people who I realized that sometimes I really had a reason that I wanted to keep somebody's name.
Yeah, because I noticed that some of the people's names were actual, like you refer to Al Sharpton in the book.
Yeah, there are people that cross the text like like almost making cameos. There's Cornel West is then Henry Louis Gates is in this book. Others are. But for some, and I think why I tried to, it's funny because this is something one of these things that who should I try to like fictionalize and change just enough that people know who it is, who, all that. And I think there's something about how I've intentionally kind of made all this distance between the narrator and the Obama figure, not naming him, leaving him almost kind of a void, almost in the background, is not as in the book as much as you would think, right? Because of that, I thought that somebody who was so closely associated with him, I should also, put behind another pane of glass, if that makes any sense, that moment to me I don't know. That moment, and then the moment after Obama got into the White House when he had that beer summit with Henry Louis Gates and
With
uh
the
White
porch
paper.
thing that happened
the
when he
racist
was
white police
breaking
officer.
into his own house.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There were moments like that. That to me, when we think back on them, feel almost more like a myth than like something real that happened. It's like almost this, when you read Greek mythology and it's like the labors of Hercules, and he just has to like go through these weird things. Rich Reverend Wright always felt that way to me. It became not about the substance of what Reverend Wright had said, but about um, is this a test that the candidate can pass? Can Obama give the speech that's going to get him out of trouble? It wasn't even about what has America done to be spoken about in that way. It was, can he talk his way out of this one? As if it was just like a trap or something.
Well,
So
I thought, to me, when it happened, I thought he was done.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
the way that they kept doing that on the endless loop, showing that over and over and over again, I was like, this is it. But
yeah.
he did talk his way out of it.
That's right. And it's so I think that's why, because it was this like, it almost felt like this mythological thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to just like put it a little bit off into the distance a little bit more. That was the, I
Okay.
think, thought. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
And if there were a lot of we're gonna get him moments throughout that.
Yes, they were.
Yeah. Yeah. You
But
know,
when he said that Kanye was an ass, he thought Kanye was gonna go off.
yeah.
They tried to make that into a huge deal, and it wound up being nothing.
Oh, I mean, the whole, there was a lot of that. And it's so hard to, now because we think about his presidency as such a big thing, it's hard to remember those first days, how everything of it, I was in New Hampshire after he had won Iowa. I was in New Hampshire, and after he lost in New Hampshire there, and just like the feeling that everything depended on that day, um and how urgent, and I don't know. I don't think we've had a moment like that in our politics. It's almost like Trump has been the sort of funhouse mirror of that. It's like we can't look away, but it's for such a different reason or something. But it just part of the imaginative thing, the creative process here was just to imagine my way back into that time and try to see it from a different angle.
Okay, I have one more sticky note.
Okay.
The demographics of Obama's staff.
Uh-huh.
Let's see, I have this on page 228. But the way it was described, and this is because I noticed it, and I'm sure other people noticed it too, was basically the same as that of his both administrations. Not all that diverse.
Well, it's so funny. I don't know how the numbers panned out during the whole administration, but I do know that, as a young Black staffer on the first Obama campaign, there was often this really anguished conversation about, okay, we're trying to elect this guy, but most of the people that are in charge here are white. Like, what does that mean? Part of it means that the only people that have been able to get this level of political experience over the last however many decades of Democratic politics,
Or centuries.
Definitely centuries, but the ones who are alive, like how many
Right.
people have run a state campaign? And because of what the opportunities were before, you can't say that many Black people have done that. Now we learned partially through this process, partially through Obama, how many people there were who had been in these campaigns in unsung positions, but a lot of people just didn't even get a chance to be thought of in that way, and
Yeah.
so it was weird to sort of be in this moment where Obama what's the amazing thing about Obama, the unfair thing about him, the reason he won probably, is that he was such a strong symbol. He meant so much. He probably meant more than a person is supposed to mean, you know? But it was weird to have that outward symbolism, but then the real realities of how history has worked behind the scenes, that duality is interesting to me.
Yeah, and one thing that I noticed a lot during his administration, both of them, he was the only Black person in the room a lot. I mean, like more
Yeah.
times than he was.
Yeah.
Which he was very comfortable being the only Black person in the room. That was the other thing I noticed. I mean, that's because he had a white mother. He was raised by white people, and so it wasn't new to him.
Well, that and even so, like, of course, that is true about him, and that has to mean something. But also to be a Black person in this country who's even going to be close to doing something like that, being the president, you have, regardless of who raised you, you are going to have practice in that room many times over.
Yeah,
Whether
that's
it's at
true.
Harvard Law School, maybe you have
Yeah,
to go to a good prep school to do that. Most
yeah.
Black people I know, even those of us who like to, we mostly hang out with Black people, whatever, all of us know what it is to be that only and have had to make that a place that we're comfortable in our lives. It just doesn't happen in our world anymore that someone gets to like, you know, they used to call it being in the bosom of your people. That's when
Yeah.
they were talking about, you can't just go from that to the top of the mountain anymore.
No.
There's a lot of ladder in between.
Yeah. Well, this has been a very, very amazing, interesting conversation.
It was so much fun. And can I
Okay.
tell you, you guys are good luck. The New York Knicks are just a couple of seconds away from winning their first round. And I haven't been watching, but I've been receiving dispatches. And so you are the best luck. That's the best thing that ever happened to me tonight.
Well, my NBA season is over. The New Orleans Pelicans were swept, so I'm
I'm
done.
sorry. I'm sorry that happened. I was so sad about Zion I was watching when he got hurt. Terrible. But
And my team didn't get there, and my team is the Warriors. Golden
the
State is my
Warriors,
team.
well, they're just
So they've been there many, many times. So give somebody else a chance.
oh well, we'll see. Well, I'm gonna watch these last 15 seconds. Hopefully they don't mess it up, but we'll see. Thank you guys so much. This has been amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
And congratulations on the book.
Thank you. And thank you again for letting me share in your platform. It's such a wonderful show. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, well, we have one more interview for tonight. And again, the Black Authors Matter TV Book Awards, not Book Awards, awards. Black Authors Matter TV Award Show is May 14th, 2 weeks from tonight. So our final guest is Therese Taylor-Stinson, and she has written a book about Harriet Tubman, and her book takes a different perspective than the ones we've heard before, because we've had a couple of other people have books about Harriet Tubman. And Therese takes a spiritual perspective about Harriet Tubman. And Therese, she writes a lot about religion and faith. So she's going to tell us about Harriet, and she calls her the public mystic and freedom fighter. So Therese, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV. I'm glad you worked everything out to get on.
Yes, thank you, Gwen. That was a challenge, but here I am.
Okay. All right. So you, why did you decide to select Harriet Tubman as your subject and then why did you decide to take the angle or the perspective of her spiritual side?
So I don't think Harriet Tubman is a big surprise to anybody. I think at least Black people, we all know about Harriet and her story. And the problem for me was someone from Broadleaf Books, which was a new imprint at the time. This book published on Valentine's Day last year, 2023. And so, and actually I'd been working on it for maybe 2 years. And part of the thing was they told me write a book, any book about anything. And so having taken a group from the place where I got my certificate in as a spiritual director, I was thinking about taking them at the Shalem Institute over to the Eastern Shore where they could learn about Harriet. And so we went over there and saw all about her history and the places she was and everything. And that caused me to want to write about her, but not historically necessarily, because before I wrote, I looked up Harriet Tubman on Amazon, and there were about 37 history books on Harriet, and only one very small children's book, like maybe it wasn't written just for children, but it was, thin and small, and it was Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman as spiritual people. But it was so small and so little in there. So what I wanted to do was to write a book. First of all, someone who is dear to me, Barbara Holmes. I don't know if you know her name or not, but she is also an author, and she was president at one of the seminary that's in Minnesota. I can't remember the name of the seminary at the moment, but anyway, she talked about public mystics, and public mystics being people who are not just spiritual and sitting in a corner and the spirit is coming upon them or anything like that, but they are people who are inspired through the spirit to do things to help other people, give to other people, which in African tradition was always the way it was supposed to be, that which you were given was meant for your community and not just for you to be a public figure or someone that somebody lifted up because you were special or something like that. So Harriet Tubman definitely was a public mystic. She definitely cared about more than just herself and even just her family, but she did a lot for a lot of different people. And all of this came from her sense of faith, and that was deeply embedded in her. She was only about 2 generations removed from those who went through the Middle Passage. And so she probably got a lot of teaching, something that we in this age probably haven't had a lot of, a teaching from the African experience about being, true to your community and how the spirit can develop you and move you. She also suffered, she was in a store one day, an overseer had a young man with him who was trying to run away from him. And as he was trying to run away from him, the man picked up a 2-pound weight. And as he picked it up, Harriet stepped in front of the boy. Nobody knows for sure if she did that deliberately or not, but she stepped in front of him and he had thrown the weight and it hit her in the head. And it caused her to have a kind of narcolepsy where, she could just go to sleep at any time. But her condition was a little different because in her slumber, or whatever it might be called, she would envision different things. So for example, when she started gathering people to take them to where they would be free, she would often, not at her own will, but just kind of fall asleep. And in the sleep, something might come to her for them not to go the way they were going, but to cross the river instead of, so that nobody would be able to follow their footsteps and footprints and things like that. So I wanted to share with people, not just someone that's written about historically because they had a certain number of people that they managed to take from enslavement, but she was a person who knew who she was. She believed in a higher power than herself, which most of us call God, but something greater than her. And she believed that was leading her. And even in her illness, her handicap from being hit in the head, the kinds of things that would come to her in her slumber or her trance-like state, she would use those things and take people to freedom. And she's the only person who did that and never lost anybody. And it's not sure how many people she did that for, but for certain it was, they say 1,000, and they say that maybe that's not the correct amount. But she also moved places, you know, like she was on the Eastern Shore, but because of the Eastern Shore was a different kind of place. It was actually very coastal, and so there was lots of water around, so things that might be harvested like rice or something like that. But some of the things that they may have done in deeper south, like picking cotton or corn or whatever they may have been picking, they didn't have that same ability over a full length of time to do that kind of thing. So a lot of people were used to build canals along the waterways that led to the Chesapeake Bay and into the Atlantic Ocean, where they could take they had lots of trees. If you've been to the Eastern Shore, there's lots of big trees there. So they had trees where they built canals, and they would take the trees, you know, out into the ocean to different places to sell to people, and these kinds of things. And Harriet Tubman actually worked on like canals and things like that. So she would be stuck in the swamps helping to build canals. When she was in the, she joined the Union Army, and she, because also coming from her ancestors, the people that were with her, though, that had come from Africa and could share those things with her, she often knew how to, when they were going to freedom, she knew what weeds to pick up and give to the babies to put them to sleep so they wouldn't cry and give away that they were there. She knew when she was in the midst of the Union Army and somebody was shot, what she could pick from the ground and help to ease their pain if they were going to die. Maybe she couldn't help them, or either get them to where they could get help. She had all of these different things that she learned from probably her grandparents and her parents and the other people that surrounded her in community. And she took these things and she was able to free people, not just from the Eastern Shore, but even deeper south, where she actually joined the army to go deeper south because some of her family was being taken away from where she was to do that. And along the way, you know, she had prayers, she had faith, and she was able to get people to continue with her, as frightening as it may have been to them at the time. There's a story about when she first went away. If you've seen the movie, you know this, that she was married to John Tubman, and then she decided after the third time she was really going to go to freedom this fourth time. And so she became free, and she went back to get him actually to go with her into a free place where they could have children, and the children would not be enslaved, because if children were with their mothers, they were enslaved like their mothers. But when she got back to John Tubman, he had married someone else. And so that didn't stop her, though. She got her brothers and her sisters and some of their friends and cousins or whomever, and she took to freedom. And they got to a place where one time she said, we're not going to go by land, we need to cross this water. So I don't know if you've ever been to places where there's a lot of coastal waters, you know, coming into either the bay or going into the ocean. You also know that there are alligators and snakes and all of these kinds of things around. And so her brother was like, oh, heck no, I'm not going across this river like that. And the other people were just standing there frozen. And so Harriet, who was maybe 4'6" or something, she was a small woman, went across this water first, and then told them to come along. And before that, though, her brother said, I'm going back home, I'm not going. She puts a gun to his head and says, you will be free or die. And so that's how deeply she felt about freedom. So those are the things that make her a public mystic and also a freedom fighter.
You know what's interesting is that because I saw the movie, and for a lot of people, they didn't have a concept of what you're discussing now, so they didn't take the movie seriously. They didn't believe the movie. And everything that you're saying solidifies what was actually in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and more. I mean, there's more than just, you know, that. Um, she she had a deep belief in God, and her belief in God was probably more like the Africans than the way you learn it here, you know, now, because in African cosmology, who they call the supreme being is an entity that they believe helped to create the universe, but we are all part of that entity. And so we have gifts given to us to help us in community on this earth with people, to help people to be able to till the soil or whatever. She took all of those things very seriously, and as you know, something that she was given not just for herself, but for the people around her. And then as she moved further north, because they were following them, trying to get them, and she ended up in New York, she ran into the women's suffrage people, which were mostly white women at the time. And but she joined them because she began to see how women still do suffer a lot of times more than males in certain situations. And so she became a sort of a woman suffragist, or there's a word in the religious category they call womanist. You know, so she was like a womanist, someone who cared about the plight of women. But the difference between a womanist and a feminist is that Black women don't just care about the women that they're around, but also the males as well, because those males are their husbands, their brothers, their cousins, their uncles. They are the people that they work with, you know, and all of that. And so Harriet is what I consider the first womanist person, and she was a freedom fighter. She was someone who was willing to take the risk that they were to get to freedom. So they get to New York, and then the slave catchers are coming up state New York trying to get these people and take them back. And so now she's taking them from New York all the way to Canada. Mm-hmm. There's another story I put in the book where she's in upstate New York getting ready to go across the Niagara Falls Bridge. And she has her whole group of people with her. And as they're walking across, there's this one gentleman named Joe. And she says, and Joe is scared to death the whole time. So she says to him, Joe, look at the falls, look at the falls. And he doesn't look, he doesn't say anything. He says, all I want to do is to get on the other side of the bridge and be free. And so they walk through across the bridge, and finally they get to the other side. And she says, Joe, you're free. And he said, oh, thank God, the next time I'm going to be free, I'm going to heaven. But he would, and she said to him, but you could have at least looked at the falls, because it was a beautiful scene, you know, as they were going toward their freedom. And then when she got to Canada, they started calling her Moses. And the people who were looking for her, maybe they started calling her Moses even before she got to Canada. But because they were calling her Moses, they were thinking that the person that was doing all of this was male. They didn't realize it was this little small woman that was doing all of those things. So
her
Harriet
is kept her alive.
Yes.
The fact that she was unsuspecting.
Mm-hmm. But also, you know, in on the Eastern Shore, during her 200th anniversary, I know one of the historians that kind of follows Harriet, and he did a video. They were in there's this place called Blackwater down on the Eastern Shore, where she probably used to go travel to kind of stay out of sight and everything. And one thing that they did is that they actually moved at night. They slept during the day. And so sometimes they would sleep in the hollow of trees. And so she would be in a tree, perhaps, you know, sleeping in the tree. And these people eventually, because she didn't lose anybody and she managed to do a lot, they allowed her, to give them instructions on how to get to freedom. And so they did. So, not only that makes her a public mystic, but not only is she a public mystic, she's also a womanist, as I mentioned before, but she's also someone who was totally and she totally knew who she was. I'm losing my words, but I don't know if you've heard of Howard Thurman.
Yeah.
Howard Thurman wrote a book called Jesus and the Disinherited. And in that book about Jesus and the disinherited, the first chapter is about Jesus's way of being, and how, although people have made him king and all of these different things, he was one of the marginalized people. He lived in a place called Nazareth, and they said, well, what good comes out of Nazareth? And his friends were people on the margins, just like him. But he refused to allow being on the margins stop him from noticing and being all of the giftedness that he had and could be. And he started trying to teach the people that were following him, just like Harriet was doing, to try to help them to feel more free. I think about us now. I think about, the Palestinians. I was in Israel, Palestine in 2019. I was with the Palestinian in the places that they had been displaced and put, and where they made their own makeshift schools. And we went into a school with the young people and danced with them, And so I have a great compassion for the people of Palestine and the things that they are going through. And they are among the marginalized. And I went to Nazareth and I saw the kind of marginalized people that were in Nazareth and different things like that. And the thing is that I'm beginning to see not just Black people as being, people who are oppressed or, people trying to dominate them and keep them in a certain category, but all across the world, there's some small group of people who are trying to control everybody else so they can have the power that they have in the world. And the only way, as Thurman would say, the only way that we can do anything about that is to find the genuine in ourselves. And when we find the genuine in ourselves, when we know who we are and what we are capable of and what our gifts are, then we can use those things for our own self and be free within and also help other people. So that book that I wrote about Harriet has at the end of each chapter something called Harriet's Apothecary. And it's at the end of each chapter is something, I put a quote about Harriet and then something that someone else wrote, Howard Thurman or Maya Angelou or something like that. And also something for them to do, something for them to try, like walking around in their neighborhood and seeing the networks that are in their neighborhood, but something to do that helps you to deepen your own understanding of yourself and what your gifts are, so that we too can find that internalized freedom to do the things that Harriet was able to do.
Do you have a copy of your book?
Yes, I do.
That you can show us? Okay, so we can see the cover, and then so when people go look for the book, they'll know.
Walking the Way of Harriet Tubman. Yeah.
Now, who did your cover art?
I wonder if it's in here. So there is a person with this place called Abbey of the Arts that does this kind of artwork. I don't remember their name at the moment, but this looks like the kind of artwork they usually do. So This, I believe, is what it came from. I like the cover myself.
It's very cool.
Well, while we have a few minutes, I know you have a retreat that you do that's based on the book.
I do a lot of things. a retreat. I have a retreat that I do, yes. And also, sometimes I use parts of Harriet to talk to people about finding the genuine in themselves. It may sound kind of cliche and something that people say all along, but I am a spiritual director, an emotional emancipation circle facilitator, and also a certified pastoral caregiver. So I talk to people and see people and also work on myself. And I know that if we aren't really grounded in who we truly are, and most of us aren't, because people are trying to make us be something else, but if we don't find that genuine in ourselves and be who we truly are, we will always be oppressed. And the thing that Harriet showed was that she got people away physically, but if you can get away physically, but you have that mental oppression, then you're not really free at all.
Yeah,
Right.
that's definitely true. And a lot of times we will follow trends. And if you constantly are following trends, you really can never find your true self, because you really are being led by I guess the powers
Control.
that be. You're being led by whatever is popular at the time. It's it's difficult to find yourself if you're constantly doing that.
Yes, absolutely.
And
And if you
Harriet was
just think about
definitely
this,
not doing what was popular.
but I mean, if you just think about our struggle, as much as we might know of it personally, as African Americans, we are constantly being directed to be like the white folks tell us to do, in order to be acceptable. The gifts that we have naturally are not worthy. But then if you do continue to read history, you'll find out, at least in the US, but also if you read history and go way back in Africa, almost everything that we have now came from Africa. And most of the things that in the US came from the hard work and the ingenuity and the artistry of Black people. So, it's in us, but they would like to subdue it or say that it doesn't belong to us so that they can keep their dominance.
Yeah. Or we haven't historically gotten the financial benefit of what our gifts are. Other people have benefited financially, and we need to. That's starting to change in small ways. I'm seeing some small changes with the younger generations doing things a little bit differently. Not all of them are doing the way I would do it, but they're charting their own course.
And that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
They come next, yes.
Yeah.
But we should be, those of us, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 70 years old now. So those of us that are still living are supposed to pour into those young people too.
Always.
They may use it differently than we did, but we're supposed to give them what we have.
Yeah, the wisdom. That's what we need to do. Well, Therese, show us your book cover one more time. We're at the end of our show, and or tonight. And so your book is called Walking the Way of Harriet Tubman, and it talks about her being a public mystic. And we knew she was a freedom fighter, but Therese covers a lot more of the spiritual side of Harriet. And
also, I don't just cover Harriet, actually, because if you ask somebody about who are the mystics, they will tell. As a matter of fact, when I wrote this book, I actually looked up who through the ages have been mystics, and most of them are white people, and actually, except that the desert Ammas and Abbas, or mothers and fathers who were, gone out into the desert, and they're considered the first spiritual directors, at least in the Christian tradition. And also they're considered the first psychologists, because they went out into the desert and actually took themselves through a lot of changes in order to see what their humanity gave them or brought to them, you know. So much of what they were people of color, but you weren't told that. If you go to a spiritual guidance program, they'll bring to you all the Middle Ages spiritual guides and mystics, as they're called, as being, you know, who they are, and all of them being coming from European people. But the truth of the matter is, we all have that ability that mystic ability in us. Whether we use it or not is something different. And so in this book, I named some people like Malcolm X, and I named Martin Luther King Jr., and I can't think of everybody, but you know, women and men of color who are public mystics and have given themselves, James Baldwin, you know, I'm thinking of nothing but men at the moment, but you know, have given themselves, you know, to advance us and to bring them along and actually advance the country that we live in, this nation that we live in, called the United States of America.
Well, Therese, we are actually a little bit past our time, and we like
to
at 9. So thank you so much for being a guest on Black Authors Matter TV, and congratulations on your book.
Okay, and thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday on Black Authors Matter TV. I'm Gwen Richardson signing off.
And I'm Dr. Rhonda Lawson. Have a wonderful evening and a great week.
Thank you for tuning in, and join us next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern for another edition of Black Authors Matter TV.